Schiaparelli at the top. That's a Margiela piece. This is Cristobal Balenciaga. Issey Miyake. Old Christian Dior. That's old ancient Chanel. Hi, my name is Bliss Foster. Me and my wife Daniela are both independent fashion critics. Ever since we started covering fashion, we have wanted to get up close to historic fashion garments, and today we finally break out the white gloves and do just that. We are in Miami at a small building called the Parodi Costume Collection, which was founded and is run by this lady. She's in her 90s and she is still running. Even while we were interviewing her, she was still repairing a dress from the 1920s. This lady is a machine. She also has exceptional taste. This is one of the most legendary Comme des Garçons pieces of all time. Here's an original Cristobal Balenciaga coat. This is a Yoji Yamamoto piece that I didn't even know existed. This is a beautiful idea for a dress by Issey Miyake. This is another insane comb piece with little heart cutouts all over it. This is by Noir K. Nina Mia, Martin Margiela Stockman coat. This is a scarf by Issey Miyake. This huge fluffy piece is by Angel Sanchez, more original Cristobal, another Yoji piece. This isn't even a fraction of what they have. The full Parodi costume collection is over 12,000 garments that span over 100 years. I don't think it would have been physically possible for us to see everything, but they pulled out a ton of pieces for us to look at up close.
So you see this like open knit taken to the absolute extreme, and then they added some braiding details down, so they would add just like one chain of knit down, and it kind of offers sort of this sort of scalloping and the ruching that happens, but also there's no neatness to it, obviously, because these yarns are so loose that it all becomes a sort of scribbled mess.
We couldn't come up with an actual name for this technique. I'm not sure there actually is one. I've seen it once or twice through other designers, but it is by no means a common technique. But also, you don't need to be a weaver to appreciate it. I mean, just look at the detail of the thing. It's like the sweater stopped being a sweater so it could be a free spirit for about a foot, and then it snapped back into being a sweater again. But much like a lot of Yoji's work, this isn't just complexity for the sake of complexity. The final result is just undeniably beautiful. But I mean, like right here on this like chunkier one that's right here, that is clearly connected to this piece, and then over here it just gets woven back in.
Gets
right
into
there.
Different rows.
Yeah, it's just kind of there, and it creates this like very unique texture thing where it's not just these wires going across. There's like still little braids of them and stuff that get left over. This must have only been worn like once or twice.
I had to have been, because I mean, just putting it on and off is really difficult. So there's a repeating pattern. So this chain goes down into this row down here. So it like skips by, what is that, like 8 rows, and then keeps going down and keeps widening the gap, and it creates this beautiful angle. I'm not really sure exactly how they accomplished that. I've crocheted for years, but I can't really wrap my head around this one.
By the way, this is Ab, that is Jesus. They're conservationists who work at PCC. Usually I think of conservationists as being much older, but Parodi prioritizes training up a new generation for this work. Both Ab and Jesus are fully qualified to do what you're seeing and to speak on it. Next up, one of my personal favorites, a very bizarre number by Noir K. Nina Mia. And this is made of what?
Neoprene is what we've sort of gathered. That's been laser cut, and so you can see that there's like no seams here. They're all just connected by these metal sort of like dog tag chain. Yeah, so you can even see what it looks like from the inside. There's a lining fabric to it, so that's really where the sewing construction comes in. But aside that, it looks like more like architectural or. And these are all just
raw seams? Are these scraps?
Yeah, they're scraps that are joined together.
Yeah, because this piece starts here, goes down a little bit, and it ends right here, and there's no like other tucking or anything else that's a part of that.
It's layers on layers.
Crazy, and then that's what leads up to all of this. And then it's just a regular dress.
This is Vionnet. This is the flame dress.
And there's one of these in the world, I think.
In this color rendition,
This piece is made of a gorgeous silk moire. Miss Perotti actually told us that this is not just an exceptional piece from Madeleine Vionnet, but it's a standout piece for 1920s fashion generally. And not that I'm an expert in 1920s dress, but if you compare this to everything else that I've seen from that period, I would absolutely believe that a woman showing up to an event wearing this dress would be very set apart. I am thrilled to say that projects like this are being funded literally by our viewers. I think a lot of people look at the general landscape of fashion media and say, this is leaving something to be desired here. And they support the fashion media that they actually like in a very literal way. People are on our Patreon and they give us the funds to be able to go out and pursue stories like this. There's benefits to doing that. You get exclusive videos, you get to join the private Discord, all kinds of cool stuff. But I am super encouraged overall to see that people are willing to actually put a couple of dollars a month towards the kind of coverage that they want to see in the industry more broadly. Super appreciate those of you that are already on there. And if you haven't, if you want to be a part of the future of fashion media, go join it up on the Patreon, patreon.com/blissfoster. Right, baby girl?
yeah.
She's a woman of many words if the camera's off, but they're really good words. This gorgeous Issey Miyake dress from the 1990s demonstrates Issey's range. When he's not inventing new methods of fabric resource management or applying calculus to pattern cutting, he managed to create some brilliant ideas for dresses that just look beautiful. It's meant to move with you a little bit and kind of be like, yeah.
Just with gravity, these all pull, so it creates this like line coming down or like rows that are really beautiful. And also just given the nature of the textile, that high shine really emphasizes all the creases that come naturally just from those little stitch marks here.
They had a pretty substantial collection of the greatest hits of Issey Miyake's body of work. We just didn't have time to cover everything, but I did want to at least show this. This is technically a scarf.
Yeah, it has two different colors. It has the pink, the yellow.
And this, yeah, super vibrant. Almost green tone, like the neon green towards the ends. And it's filled with this really lightweight tulle in all different colors. So we have orange, blue, yellow. And then you'll notice that some of the confettis have even traveled up. I don't know if that was something that was original to the design or just kind of happened naturally. Kind of gives you an indication of the number for research reference, which I really appreciate.
Issey knew he was a genius. Yeah. Next up, we saw one of what ended up being my favorite piece of the entire filming period. This is a Yoji Yamamoto piece. It's very old, it's very delicate, but we were able to take a really close look at it and uncover some awesome details. So we have the houndstooth stuff up here that's all being shaped by what feels like a plastic wire or like just a little like aluminum wire running through. Do we?
Probably
That feels more metallic than it does plastic to me, at least. Mm-hmm. And then, yeah, a little layer of organza, I'm guessing. A little layer of organza that kind of covers over it, gives it this kind of like three-dimensionality. But the organza is sewn down. It's not just like a netted layer on top of everything.
I think it's a chiffon.
Chiffon? Okay, great, cool. The spirals individually open up, and then these are shoulders.
Yeah, so it has these straps with these kind of like...
That goes up over the shoulder, and then this kind of hangs off.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah.
And it has this attached scarf.
Okay, so you may be wondering why we would even bother to list off all these little details like this. Like, that feels more metallic than plastic. Like, we all love beautiful things, but these insane nuanced details, it's like, why would this matter, right? Okay, I have an answer, but first I need to tell you about this one other insane nuanced detail in this piece, which is part of an exhibit that PCC did about Margiela. This is part of a group of clothes that is usually called the paparazzi pieces. So the idea here was that Margiela changed the patterns of typical garments to have hoods. It's for celebs when they gotta, escape the pop. There are broad conceptual interpretations that we could make about that collection based on that one piece of info alone. You just have some grainy photographs and you could talk for an hour about it. I did once. But the benefit of seeing this piece in person up really, really close, it reveals details like this. This cuff is a joke, and it's actually a pretty funny joke. A long time ago, suits were made for individuals, right? Most suits, even crappy ones, required a lot of handwork. Then we had the Industrial Revolution, eventually leading to fast fashion, and a lot of those little handwork details got left out. Okay, so one of the biggest pains in the ass if you're hand sewing a garment is buttonholes. They take like 15 minutes each to do by hand. Even when cuff buttonholes are made with a machine, they're usually not functional because you don't like have to be able to unbutton them, right? And most people are fine with it, right? Like who cares? So as it became more and more common for cheap suits to have non-functioning cuff buttonholes, the guys who had bespoke, expensive suits with real buttonholes would nonchalantly start leaving the last buttonhole unbuttoned. Okay, so Margiela did undo the last button to play into that status symbol thing, but if you look really, really closely, these are still fake buttonholes. They are non-functioning. That last one cannot be buttoned and the rest cannot be unbuttoned. Okay, I've spent more time studying the work of Martin Margiela than any other designer, and I can say with confidence I have never noticed that detail before I visited PCC to examine this garment up close. It made me laugh out loud when I saw it. That's why we take note of all of these small details. If there is storytelling in a garment, taking note of small nuances is one of the only ways of pulling that story out of the garment. We can't always have a clean explanation like with this Margiela cuff. Sometimes the designer doesn't want there to be an explanation or any storytelling in it. But if there is storytelling, we'll never find it unless we do this process. The biggest thing I'm struck by with this is the purposefulness, because what I have observed going to Paris and actually being able to touch a lot of these collections up close is that as a designer, especially younger designers, as they get crazier with the idea, once we get kind of to this place of pattern cutting, a lot of shortcuts in material, actual construction, final decisions about draping and like pattern piece placement and stuff. It gets very sloppy because I think people get into this mentality of, well, there is no idea of correct fit with this because it's such a bonkers idea. But this strikes me as extremely purposeful in all the individual decisions that were made. There was no like, just do just finish it, come on, let's go. Like this feels very much like a labor of love on this, which is cool to me.
Just even holding it. It's so beautiful. This one, since it's newer, we have a little bit more to work with. Like they even gave us a swatch of the fabric here, which I very much appreciate. And I also think they knew how delicate this piece was when they were constructing it, that it may need repairs like after the first or second wear. I think this is a jacquard with this beautiful texture on it too, because it sort of raises up on the repeating pattern.
So this still has that rough, raw edging thing that we literally saw this past season at the showroom. Yeah. This idea of like multiple pieces of construction layer, because it has to be this thick, I guess, to hold its shape. This many layers, that's what the layers are for, I assume. And then it looks like they just took an axe and just chopped it, just raw edge the whole way down.
And then covered it.
Yeah, and so like over here, this is all finished very effectively, where it looks like, oh, Valentine's Day heart kind of outside of the last stitch. It still has this kind of poofiness, but all that looks purposeful. And then you get inside, and there's like kind of this is as close to a signature of Ray that I know of, is that type of thing. But you wanted to see the tags. So this is the real benefit of places like the Parodi Costume Collection. We get to study these legendary pieces up close, and inevitably, when you spend a lot of time with art, it tends to open itself up to you. But this doesn't just happen. In order to offer this hugely important service to everyone, Parodi has to take care of these garments. We witnessed a ton of repairs while we visited, but because they have over 12,000 garments, organization and documentation have to be front of mind. So here, Ab is reading off damage information on a 100-year-old flapper girl dress, and Jesus is documenting. Eventually, this piece will get processed for any repairs that they can still do safely.
Sometimes 1920s dresses can be kind of ambiguous whether they're front or back because they're completely symmetrical on both sides. In this case, there's some ornamentation to distinguish the front versus the back. I like the way the beads sound when they're going against the metal. It's a light pink silk chiffon. Chiffons can be really delicate, and sometimes the dyes that have been used on it, combined with the fact that the fibers are silk, can cause a little bit of distressing over time, especially with the weight of the beads.
So a little bit about the condition report. We have to write the significance, a description, dimensions, any previous repairs, treatments, or alterations, overall condition report after an assessment, and then the interesting part is all the details, right? So if it does have any accretions, discolorations.
There's been cases where we'll take a dress out and the beads will just start like collapsing to the floor. And that can be kind of troublesome because sometimes the beads are really unique and you have to collect all of them.
The silk threads, obviously, over time, over 100 years, deteriorate. Mm-hmm. So once that pressure goes on, it just all falls off.
Right.
So we've had dresses that we've had to completely restore all the beading by hand.
So we can start with looking at specific damages. The first thing I notice is the staining around the neckline. And so there's discoloration there. It is front and back, so it sort of extends down 17 centimeters. In terms of discolorations, okay, there's one more stain that is in center bottom. It looks like there's not any noticeable loss in the beading, which is kind of miraculous. Ooh, another area of staining.
Is there even a way with stuff like this, with all the beading, to safely turn it inside out?
It's a case by case and using just like your better judgment. I always think of the garments as living things, and like if I would want to be turned inside out, you know, and if that would bother like what the, you know, the internal construction. But in this case, I think we're good to take a peek. I wouldn't fully turn it inside out just because I think that these beadings could
Get in a fight?
Get in a fight, yes, thank you.
It went on like this for a while. It was honestly pretty nuts to see the detail that's necessary to keep this collection in functioning order. The PCC archive is pretty exceptional. I am super glad that we went, and I am super glad that we took the time to document this stuff. I can see us in the future working with them a whole lot more. This stuff was absolutely incredible. Love y'all, mean it. I don't know if we're gonna do these on the floor in the future. I feel like there's like a lot of blood moving to my head. That's probably not good, right? The Met people are gonna see this video, and then there's gonna be a bidding war for these two.
Are the Met people gonna see this video?